Today I'm turning this little mint can into a tiny little plein air easel. So the first step is, of course, the setup. And to be honest with you, there were two things that inspired this video. One of them, of course, was finding that little mint can. I've always wanted to do an Altoid can Pochade box or a little plein air box. Like I've seen them like over a decade ago on social media. And then two, Gamblin sent me this lovely gift package. I was lucky enough to do an interview with them recently for actually an upcoming video about how to paint solvent-free. Stay tuned. But they sent me my favorite primaries, and then they sent me 3 colors I'd never tried, and I'm really excited to try, and a solvent and a white. Of course, I already own those two, so I swapped them out with my solvent and white in this image, but I'm going to test those for you really quick before I set up the little plein air easel. I'll timestamp it, you can skip forward to that part, but I was really excited to swatch these. I love a good swatch. Funny enough, the more muted color is the one that I was the most excited about. I've heard other artists rant and rave and obsess over this brown pink. I think it's literally just called brown pink. And it's interesting because it really is like a reddish sort of brown. But you can see when you cool it down with titanium white, which is like a really cool white, that it has this like pinky quality to it. It's fantastic. My other favorite color is probably Pyrrole Orange, and I like it for the same reason. It's orange, technically, sure, yeah. But if you mix it with white, because it's cool, it turns into the most gorgeous hot pink ever. And brown pink kind of does that, but slightly more muted. So I'm very excited to play with that. Here is my little tin. Step 1, eat your mints. Not a problem for me and my family. We eat them like candy. It's probably not good for our stomachs, but we went through this pretty quick. And here I am. I'm taking freezer paper, which I use sometimes as palette paper, because it has like a plastic wax coating on one side. And I'm just cutting out the shape of the little tin to make just a barrier to protect the metal. I don't think anything is going to be too corrosive in the can. I don't think you have to do this step, but I've learned over the years from being a messy painter that it's just easier to put down some like freezer paper just to protect what you have on your palette. The oil gets everywhere, especially if you don't use this every single day. So anyways, I just traced the bottom, and then I left these little edges to fold up and protect the edges of the little can. I mean, the mints were like maybe $2-3, so it's no big deal, but why not be safe? So the edges were a little tall, no big deal. I just trimmed them to fit, and I'm pretty proud of this. It fits in there pretty well. It's not perfect, but it works just fine. And now I'm going to go ahead and go in with my primaries. So primaries are basically, as you probably know, just colors that you can't mix other colors to create. And the true primaries are magenta, cyan, and yellow. And I feel like this is a pretty good substitute with it. I'll list the colors on the side. And then what I'm holding up here is actually kind of a fluke. Many years ago, Jerry's Artorama sent me this in an order of like paints or palettes or something else I ordered. And I asked him, do you want this back? It's a bunch of little mini canvases, and I don't know if I'm going to use these. And they said, no, you're good, just keep it. And I have been using it, but not for the canvases. I've been using it as like a little tripod. I mean, I've been using it to film my TikToks on. But I was excited when I realized that 2 of the sizes fit perfectly in this little container. So that's what I'm setting up here. I'm just taping it. These are really light, and so this is kind of perfect. I'm really excited. I'll put links where you can find everything, and some cheaper options too. You can just use like a piece of paper. No worries there. But yeah, I had all these things, so it worked out. And then of course I'm putting my medium in here. I love this medium. Again, can't stop ranting and raving about it, but I'm dedicating a whole other video to it. So again, stay tuned. But yeah, as long as I can find myself some brushes and some solvent, this is actually a pretty solid little mini Pochade box, which is just kind of the fancy phrase for like a painting box. And I'm not gonna lie, I love that Bob Ross is on there, because you know what? Happy mistakes. Just paint what you gotta paint. For my solvent, I'm actually just bringing this little spice jar I cleaned out. I have a ton of these. I'm a jar hoarder, so finding one of these was no problem. I find as a painter, I do actually use a lot of my hoarded jars, so it works out. But I'm making sure to label it. This is something that I would suggest doing. You might think you'll remember. It's like, oh, I'll know this is brush cleaner, or oh, I'll know this is oil. But you'd be surprised. So I always label and date any of my solvents that I put into other jars. It's a good habit to get into. Again, I know someone out there is watching this who probably should label their stuff better. This is your sign. I'm not naturally much of a labeler or an organizer, but anyways, here's your sign, and here I am glitching. Yes, it's the 2nd, November 2nd. And then I'm going to put my EcoSolve in there. I love EcoSolve. I've tried many solvents over the years. The odorless mineral spirits are great, whatever, but the EcoSolve has my heart. It's non-toxic, it's low odor, and yeah, I'm going to bring it with me. It's going to work like a solvent. It's going to thin out the paint, as well as clean brushes, and you don't need to fill this up. A little goes a long way. And here I am doing that step. The next thing I'm doing is just making sure that the lid is super tight. EcoSolve is non-toxic, but it does erode plastic, so you just have to be kind of careful with it. And I'm accumulating everything here and trying to figure out how I'm going to transport it, because I'm trying to fight the urge to bring like a purse or a backpack. That's just kind of, I truly am not much of a purse person, so I have my paper towel here. This is everything I need, and let me just say, like, when I was filming this, doing this little up close got me so excited. I'm like, yes, it's gonna happen. And the sun was starting to set, so of course I ended up finding a rogue scrunchie and just kind of tying it all together. And yeah, I was actually super duper proud of this. And that leads us to going out and finding our spot. Like I said, the sun was starting to set, so I grabbed a hat, and now I'm just walking through my neighborhood. I am a big walker. I love walking everywhere, and I love that I didn't even have to wear like a purse or a backpack. I'm just like holding my set. If I wasn't filming, literally I would just handball this little my little plein air kit that I just made. But I also have my tripod, which, you know, movie magic. But here's my spot. I thought the sun looked so beautiful shining through here. I've stopped many times to kind of just look around this little creek, and I've like told myself I should paint this area. So here I am actually doing that. I'm just setting up, which, you know, with a tiny little set like this, it's no time at all. And yeah, I'm about to jump in. I did prime my little tiny canvas with the quinacridone magenta, as well as some of the EcoSolve, so it's really thinned out. The EcoSolve also has a really fast dry time, so it worked out really well. But here's another close-up of my little shot and a better scene of what I'm painting. Really wanted to get that orange and yellow of the sun peeking through the trees and reflecting off the water. So I sped this up quite a bit, 10 times speed. This only took me, I think, a little less than 15 minutes to do all this. So, you know, small painting took less time. It doesn't always work like that. I find sometimes like smaller paintings can be more challenging in some ways. But when you size down to this extreme, there's not much to cover. So I started by blocking in my larger forms, as is kind of my go-to, my protocol. I started with my biggest brush, which was still a tiny little brush. And I was really adamant on capturing the light and then trying to sort of evoke the reflective quality. I will say, when your canvas is tiny, you don't have a lot of space to paint details to help explain things. So sometimes it's helpful to pick a subject that's a little bit more obvious, and I feel like the reflection of the water made this make more sense. I don't know, I could be off base here, but I was surprised. This is about the point in the painting where I started realizing that this might actually turn out pretty okay. I also thought it was funny, there were a lot of walkers out in the evenings, and I'm just like scrunched down here, like hunched over next to the lake. And I don't know if people could tell that I was painting, but as is the process. And here's the finished painting. Again, I was pretty surprised. That's where I framed it in so you can see what I was exactly painting. And here's the cleanup. It's pretty simple. I just clean my brushes in the EcoSolve. Again, it works wonderful as a brush cleaner. And then I believe I just like re-scrunchied this all together. I took a couple of shots. And here we are with, and plus my ear pods. But here we are with the finished product, and I'm done painting. So I'm going to gather my tripod and head home. Hopefully that was fun to watch and inspired you to also paint.